yes, of course, we're called to certain careers, but we don't always know what that will look like. I've, lived in New York City 23 years. I've worked in like 6 different industries since I've worked here. And never when I moved here to study acting did I ever think I would be working with international pastors and ministry leaders, talking to them about what to put into their churches. So, God's going to do what he's going to do with your life, but you have to be faithful to the thing that he's given you to do today.
There is not a square inch in the whole domain of our human existence over which Christ, who is sovereign over all, does not cry, mine.
The rhythm of a city isn't just in its traffic or train lines. It's in the hands that build, the minds that plan, the hearts that serve. From morning commutes to late night shifts, the public square hums with the quiet poetry of work. Some visible, most not. Yet in that hum is a question echoing back to the church. Does any of this matter to God? Christian faith isn't just about Sunday morning behavior. It's about bringing light into everyday places, including board meetings, budget spreadsheets, neighborhood zoning meetings, and construction sites. If we really believe God cares about the whole world, then he certainly cares about what we do in it. So let's talk about how churches can actually help their people show up differently in the public square and at work, not just as individuals, but as a force for good. Whether you're in a boardroom, a classroom, a kitchen, or a job site, work shapes our lives in profound ways. But what if the church had more to say about your 9 to 5 than just asking you to volunteer? Well, our guests today, Missy Wallace and Lauren Gill, longtime friends and mentors truly in faith and work, have just released a new book, Faith and Work, Galvanizing Your Church for Everyday Impact. And so, Missy, Lauren, welcome. I really appreciate you being here.
Good. It's good.
It's good to be with you. In fact, there's a conference next week with Faith and Work national leaders, and I know I'll get to see you there, Lauren. Missy, sorry you can't be with us, but off on a family trip for sure. So, Missy, I know, Lauren, you're coming to us from New York City. Missy, are you in Nashville?
I'm in Nashville today, yes.
Oh, good. Okay. Well, thank you, friends, viewers, and listeners for joining us. Welcome to Nuance, where we seek to be faithful in the public square. I'm Case Thorpe, and want to encourage you to like, subscribe, and share. All right, Missy and Lauren, I've got to brag on you a little bit and share a bit more about who you are. So, Missy Wallace is a seasoned strategist and executive coach who helps corporate and nonprofit teams align their decisions with spiritual discernment. After more than 30 years in consulting, education, and leadership, including roles at Boston Consulting Group, Time Warner, and Bank of America all around the world, most applicable in today's discussion is her time at Tim Keller's Redeemer City to City. She now focuses on guiding leaders through meaningful, faith-rooted strategy. She founded the Nashville Institute for Faith and Work, that's where I got to know her first, and has written for the Gospel Coalition and Eventide. Missy holds degrees from Vanderbilt and Northwestern's Kellogg School, is married to Paul, and loves hiking, recently completing a 500-mile pilgrimage on the El Camino de Santiago. Okay, Missy, that, could be a whole episode. I think, I'm taking a group of guys in October.
Well, I have a lot to say about it, so give me a call.
Okay, well, give me a sentence or two on your experience.
Profound encounters with the Lord that really helped me remember the existential experience of his presence and love for me, not just a cognitive experience. And drop all media, stay off all media, be present. Okay. Don't blog.
Well, I can't wait to get there. We're only doing 100 kilometers, which is 70 miles. So we're doing the pansy version, but I'm really impressed with your 500.
It was amazing. Thank you.
Well, Lauren Gill is Senior Director of the Global Faith and Work Initiative at Redeemer City to City. In this role, she collaborates with pastors, church planters, ministry leaders worldwide to equip lay people to address brokenness across various industries and professions. Lauren co-authored and served as the general editor for The Missional Disciple, Pursuing Mercy and Justice at Work. Her diverse background includes experiences as an actress, a producer, a licensed mental health counselor in New York State, focusing on vocational issues. She holds a master's degree in counseling psychology from Columbia University and a BFA in drama and journalism from NYU. She resides in New York City with her husband, Sunil, and their 2 children. Lauren, an actress, that is news to me. Did you come to New York to pursue that?
I did. You didn't know that?
No, I didn't, but that's cool.
Yes, I came to New York to pursue acting, to attend NYU, which is actually how I got involved in the faith and workspace, because I attended a talk Tim Keller gave to actors. And so that's kind of what brought me into the space when I first moved here. But yes, do some acting and producing on the side in addition to working at City to City.
So
watch your TV shows. Like, she makes cameos in shows that you probably watch. Keep your eyes open.
So tell me one of them.
So I did a small part on American Horror Story last year. If you blink, you'll miss me. The year before, I did a small part on FBI. But I enjoy the producing and being in things that I get to produce more, because as a Christian, I like to have some sense of the story being redemptive and moving towards healing brokenness. But it's those opportunities, it's a lot more work than just popping into something every now and then. Yeah.
Well, that's really cool. You never know.
Never know.
People's backstories.
It's true.
Well, friends, like I mentioned, they are here to talk about their recently released and jointly authored book, Faith and Work, Galvanizing Your Church for Everyday Impact. And let me encourage you to go pick up a copy. You can order it online on Amazon. We're going to give you the website at the end of this episode. But, I mean, Missy, Lauren, congrats. This is very well done. What I love about it are the charts, and not worksheets per se, but the how-tos. So many faith and work books are about the theology and the need, but wow, this is nuts and bolts that has long been needed. Really appreciate that. So, tell me about writing a book together. Expectations, frustrations, surprises. What's it been like?
So I think we got to the end, and we can probably say we loved writing a book together, and that writing a book was much harder than we thought it would be. But I think, writing a book together is even harder than writing a book alone, because every single small decision, from conceptual things in the book, to order of the book, to font, to cover color, to title, to changes, to do we agree on changes, needs to be mediated between 2 people. And I think that we had a great relationship going into the book. We'd worked directly together for 3 years. We'd work indirectly together for another kind of 3 to 5, and kind of in peer organizations as colleagues. And we had a great relationship going into the book. And I think that made all the difference, because we did have points of times we had to submit to each other. We had mutual frustrations. And I think at the end of the day, well, first of all, Lauren submitted more than Missy did. So kudos to Lauren.
Wait, submitted more material or submitted authority-wise?
We disagree, and someone has to we got to find a way through the disagreement. And our disagreements were small. But I will say, I feel our editor told us something at the end of the process. And our editor was an amazing woman that lives in the UK. And she told us that watching our process of working through conflict together was an embodiment of what the book was about, that increased her love for Christ. And so for me, that's an ultimate statement about what collaborating was. Because it was hard, and our strengths are different. And so it was hard, and it was good.
Wow. Wow. Okay, so tell me, what did Lauren bring to the table, Missy, that
Oh,
maybe you didn't have or you needed?
yes. So she brought a lot to the table. So first of all, our careers are so different, right? Mine kind of came through the business world and the education world, and
Mm,
hers came through arts and counseling. So that was just an
mm,
incredible marriage for us to have had these dual careers. And then she's more decisive than I am, which is incredibly helpful. And she is really a driver of a process and a driver of deadlines, but in a way that's like loving and joy filled. And
mhm,
I feel that really enhanced the book. And then just the whole process. But then she was really the owner of several of the case studies and of the Heart Community World section.
mm.
And I think those are both critical to the book being meaningful. So that's just off the top of my head. The list is 1,000 more things. Those are
All
off the
right,
top of my head.
Lauren, what did Missy bring that you needed?
I mean, the book wouldn't exist without Missy. Missy's someone who can take a lot of information and ideas and make them into something cohesive. And so I think you see like the faith and work amidst brokenness 2 by 2 in the book, where she talks about like
Hmm.
the quadrants of personal and systemic brokenness.
That's
And
great.
that is something that, she's able to take all of these ideas and condense it into something that's digestible. And when we teach that, quadrant to people, it's like a light bulb goes off for them. And similarly, I think we had worked together for years with all of these different pastors and ministry leaders in like 42, 43 countries. And at some point while we were working with them, Missy was like, I think we really need a map that shows them how to get from assessment to piloting something to then thinking about what works. And, there's like a feedback loop. And she drew out the map, and we worked together to iterate it and get feedback from people and build the tools that go along the steps. But I think that was, she's able to hear all of these different facets from all of these different people and then say that all fits together like this. And that's what makes her such a great consultant. I think, and so, yeah, I think our gifts were just really complementary. I think she's really good at those structural pieces in the book, and because of my arts background, I think I was able to sort of say, like, what's the narrative that tells this story, for this tool.
Yeah. And I will say, Case, what's so interesting on the backside of finishing it, sometimes people will say to me, oh gosh, did you write that concept, or did Lauren, or did you write that sentence, or did Lauren? And I truly can say, except for a couple of pages, I truly can say, you know what, I actually am not sure. Like, we were both so in and out of the document that at the end of the day, almost every word is our words. There's not like a Lauren section and a Missy
Yeah.
section. It just truly was a collaborative work.
Hmm. Hmm. Well, it's an excellent text. Friends, there's a thing called the Gotham Fellowship that unites the three of us. We have long taught this curriculum in the life of the church, and I'm recruiting actively for my next seminar that starts in September. But yes, the 2 by 2 on brokenness was something I thought, ooh, I'm going to put that in my Gotham this next year, because it really is, I think, a helpful tool. Well, let's back things up a little bit, but long before this book came about, long before y'all were leading in this space, why faith and work? What attracted each of you to this particular form of discipleship and this particular approach to your faith?
Well, as I mentioned, when I moved to New York, I was an actor, and I went and I heard Tim give a talk to actors. And having come from Kentucky, I think all of the pastors were well-intentioned in my small rural community, but the unconscious message was, in order to serve the Lord through your work, you have to do ministry work. You have to be a pastor, you have to be a missionary, you have to be a youth leader, something like that. And I just intrinsically had always wanted to be an artist. And so I knew that God hadn't put that in me for no reason. So after hearing Tim speak, I actually joined the New York City Gotham Fellowship.
Okay.
And that began my faith and work journey. And I just felt like after that, I really had that inherent understanding of how the gospel changes my motivation for work, my relationships at and through work, and the way I view my industry and what God is using it to do in the world. And so that's how I really came into the space. And then I started working for the Center for Faith and Work at Redeemer before eventually moving over to City and working with Missy with global pastors and ministry leaders on how to bring this to their churches.
That's great. What about you, Missy?
Sure. So my journey into faith and work was rather circuitous. Although I had become a Christian in my adolescence, like in my own belief system. When I went to college, I really had a hard time understanding how to like do what's expected of you. Kind of, if you're good at economics, you become a banker, and if you're good at banking, and I just kind of got on that track, and I really didn't follow my faith there for a while. It was very much in the background. And so I had no understanding that I should even be thinking about faith and work, because I wasn't even thinking about faith. I was just thinking about work. And so I got on this path of work, and went to business school and started working in consulting and got transferred abroad and then got transferred back to New York. And when I was in New York, I had my first child. When I had my first child, she's now 27 now. Like, okay, wait a minute. I need to get back to like faith. And so I started going to Bible study again, joined a church, got back into church. But it was a journey of my second child was born with a birth defect. And that really brought me back to faith. He was in the hospital 89, 90 days off and on his first year. I was like, okay. And so I was increasingly, God was pulling me in. And when we moved to Nashville a few years later, which is where I had gone to college and my husband had grown up, when we moved back to Nashville, I started doing some consulting projects, which led me to interact with a group that was starting a new school. And I did a consulting project for them. And then they said, do you want to help us start this school? And I was like, oh, that'd be amazing. And I actually made that very, very quick decision to get off the corporate track onto the nonprofit track, unbeknownst to me, due to bad faith and work theology. Because in my mind, I had been cultivated over the years that, working for a church, that's for like the super Christians. Well, I'll never be that. Being a missionary, I'll never be that. But doing nonprofit work, that's better for the world than you just doing that old greedy for-profit work. And so I was like, great, I'm going to get off. I'm going to do something better for the world. And I love that I did that. That worked. I ended up working at that school over a decade. However, in the middle of that, my oldest daughter, who was 8 at the time, was stricken with a very weird and rare illness that took us to 3 hospital systems to get her diagnosed. But the short version is that she was diagnosed very dire and sent to hospice. And we had very poor outcomes offered to us. And boy, that's a new level of surrender. Like, wow. I got to surrender my daughter, and the outcome was very good for us. And then I had to really, but it was she's thriving. She's great. She's 27.
Oh my, praise the Lord.
And yes, thank you. And during that time, it was a very long recovery. And I read, I think, almost every Tim Keller book written during that time. And I was just really fresh to, okay, there's something more going on, like a new layer of surrender. And so I started into seminary at night, went back to the school, but started working to seminary at night. And in seminary, I really had my faith and work theology developed. And by the way, I didn't finish at seminary. I didn't even almost finish at seminary. I took like 4 classes. I really had my, and not Greek or Hebrew, but I really had my faith and work theology much more fully developed, which led to me writing the business plan for the Nashville Institute for Faith and Work, actually in seminary for a class.
Okay.
I thought it was a class project. And then I came to New York for some training, which is, I think, where I originally met both of you. And now here we are, what is it, 10 or 12 years later. So
Did we meet at the Gotham training held at Princeton?
I think so. I can't remember which year you went, but we either met around that time.
Oh, wow. Wow, my goodness. I'm so grateful for your daughter's health and wellness. It just dawns on me, we don't know each other's stories. We've done such great engagement on ministry execution and theology. I'm just grateful to know more about y'all. So, Missy, you mentioned that faith and work miss that a lot of Christians have in terms of, the professional Christians and the pastors versus the supposed greedy work in the marketplace. What are some other faith and work misses do people live and operate with? Because, we need your work, but before we realize how much we need it, we've got to recognize where a lot of people in the church just don't see this integration. So what are some other things you hear people say that just need some correction and revitalization?
It's so great. I mean, I think that there's so many that I'm going to try to kind of categorize them. And I think there's misses in the inward journey, kind of like our relationship with God and with work. And then there's misses kind of on the outward journey, like how does our work go out into the world? And I think some of the key misses on the inward journey are around people not even understanding that we were created to work. I mean, that seems so fundamental to the three of us since we're in this ecosystem and talk about this all the time. But I'm repeatedly running into people who still have the Western mindset of I'm working to survive, or I'm just working to finish working so I can have more leisure or golf or do whatever, store up more money. And this whole concept of we're created to work and work out of the image of God within us seems to be flubbed up a bit of places, a lot due to kind of our Western narratives around work. I think another, you kind of had asked me earlier about purpose and calling. And I think that another, when you start to think about work as an outward expression, a lot of people put so much pressure if they are thinking about work as a response to, their Lord and Savior. A lot of people start to think, okay, well, then I have to get it perfect. Well, then I have to figure out my call. What is my call? And I think it's helpful to be reminded that our call is to Jesus Christ, and that is our primary call. And out of that, everything else flows, and it can ebb and flow over different seasons. So I've been a banker, I've been a consultant, I've been a mother, I've been a volunteer worker, I've been a ministry leader. So these things can ebb and flow, and particularly see with young people like this incredible, I need to work in my passion, and that passion can evolve. And then, of course, there's just the great divide. Okay, when I go to work, I'm at work. Like I can't be a Christian at work. Just that we've flubbed that up, and the churches aren't teaching that. And so people don't know how to. What Lauren was talking about at the beginning of this podcast. I want to be part of films that are bringing healing into the world. Well, you can bring healing into the world through banking. You can bring healing into the world through an advertising agency. And so an imagination for what it could be is another flubbed up part of the outward journey.
Lauren, do you have any insights on that one?
Yeah, I just agree with what Missy says. I think that I think that inward journey is really the piece that a lot of people miss, and just thinking through, they focus so much on like, what does God call me to do in an epic sense, instead of saying, what is the thing that he has put in front of me today that I have to accomplish? Like calling is about today. Right. And yes, of course, we're called to certain careers, but we don't always know what that will look like.
Right.
I've, lived in New York City 23 years. I've worked in like 6 different industries since I've worked here. And never when I moved here to study acting did I ever think I would be working with international pastors and ministry leaders, talking to them about what to put into their churches. So, God's going to do what he's going to do with your life, but you have to be faithful to the thing that he's given you to do today.
This book, as I mentioned, is a great nuts and bolts, a how-to. Before we began recording our podcast, friends, we were discussing their Missy and Lauren's work with those global pastors, and also how fun that your book is being read in countries all over the world. That's really special. Tell us about that conference, but more specifically, When you have your book with them and you're teaching them the how-tos, what are you emphasizing? And if so, and answer that in light of our listeners thinking, okay, what could I do at my church or go back and tell my pastor?
Hmm. I think the thing that we have found that is that holds up across context really well is actually the same framework that Gotham uses, excuse me, and
Mm-hmm.
it's the Heart Community World framework. The heart piece being about that personal relationship with Jesus. How does my personal sin and brokenness show up at work? What is my motivation for work? And is that about me or is that about God?
Mm-hmm.
Right? Am I being repentant of when I see my brokenness come up at work? Am I relying on God for wisdom and prayer? And then we move to the community piece, which is about how does the gospel change the way I intersect with my customers, my coworkers, my clients,
Mm-hmm.
my colleagues, even my competitors? That should look different if I'm a Christian than if I'm not a Christian, ideally,
Mm-hmm.
right? And then the world piece, which is what is God using my industry in my city to do that's unique from others,
Mm-hmm.
right? He's using finance to do something different than transportation, than technology, than art, than housing, than education. Those are communicating different things about his glory. And so I think what Missy and I have found is that framework, those questions around those three key areas,
Mm-hmm.
holds up really across everywhere we've worked. It plays out differently, right?
Yeah.
The areas of idolatry and personal brokenness are different in Singapore versus Accra versus Mumbai versus Buenos Aires, right?
Yeah.
So they play out differently, but the frameworks are often more consistent than what I think a lot of
Mm-hmm.
people would suspect.
That's great because the world component of that is what's captured my imagination
Me
through
too.
this decade or more.
Hmm.
And one of the approaches I often have with folks through the collaborative to help them think, oh, my industry is a needing God's plan for the common good. That big leap has not often been made of what does my work to my company, my industry then provide to a community, to a greater context. And that helps, I think, get beyond just the mere ethics part of faith and work. Yes, we should be Christian in our behavior and moral in our activities and choices. And there's also a bigger work of God going on here. Missy, talk about those seminars and what gives you life in them and what do you try to emphasize?
Sure. So we very much collaboratively do it together. But I think a couple of other things besides what Lauren mentioned that are emphasized in the seminars are, first of all, a lot of people buy into the concepts of faith and work, but they aren't sure about like how to prioritize this and the many things that a particular church or ministry has to do. And so we really teach faith and work as a context rather than a program. And it really helps like people go, okay. I mean, you haven't met anyone in ministry anywhere that doesn't want to impact people's hearts and hopefully impact the cities and communities in which they live. And so if you can help people reframe that work is the context in which their people are living and spending an enormous amount of time. And so how can you do any kind of ministry if you're not addressing where they're spending this enormous amount of time and where a lot of their joy and their hurt is happening to them? So that's something we emphasize. And then we also try to make our seminars experiential in that the person is becoming a more integrated faith and work leader themselves as they are learning how to perhaps lead and implement faith and work initiatives. And so we do find, a lot of people need a little bit of formation on their own work idolatry to be able to then help minister to others about theirs. And so we tried to build, spiritual renewal exercises in so that the leaders are finding their relationship with God around work strengthened
Mm-hmm.
while learning about faith and work.
Mm-hmm. So good. When the collaborative was under the First Presbyterian Orlando umbrella, we in the leadership of the collaborative were very mindful to ask that same question of ourselves. not to presume, oh, churches have great workplaces that are well integrated and working with a good theology. And in that vein, we have a lot of parachurch ministry folks in Orlando, with Crew being here and Wycliffe Bible translators, not pioneers, navigators, and others. And so we had a number of seminars where we would go to those organizations and gather people and say, well, what are the idols in your nonprofit ministry environment? May we not assume that there's not the work of the adversary here, but how do we think about that? Okay, so that's great, and I agree. The heart work is so essential. How about y'all? What are some of the practices that you practice in order to stay focused? Because you're both even in ministry, you're in fast-paced, results-driven kind of work, and that is our greater culture. So what do y'all do to nurture your heart?
I really I thank the parachurch ministry navigators for drilling this into me, since you just mentioned them. When I was in college, I really feel like just doing a quiet time as often as possible. I usually can get one in on weekdays, but not weekends these days because I have small children. But when they're at school, I can get one in after I drop them off. And sometimes, it's not ideal. I have a 15 minutes in a coffee shop before I am going into a meeting or something, but to spend time in the Word, and then connecting my prayers to what is in reaction to the Word. And before I did this podcast today, I was feeling, I dropped my kids off at school. I came back. I have all of these different things lined up. I got on at the wrong time because I had the time messed up for the podcast. But the verse that I read today was from 1 Corinthians 15. Therefore, my dear brothers and sisters, stand firm. Let nothing move you. Always give yourselves fully to the work of the Lord, because you know that your labor in the Lord is not in vain. Let nothing move you. And I will carry that throughout today, no matter what sort of inconveniences come up. And then tomorrow, God will give me a new word to carry when I spend time with Him.
I love that. I would say like Laura and I like some quiet time each day. And I've really moved to a journaling method to try to take the scripture and ask God what He would like me to see, and really expanding my kind of hearing muscles through a particular journaling technique. But I also have a rhythm of receding for silence. And so I try to take a day of silence at least every quarter. And I got off of that for a while. And now I'm getting back on that. And I have found that completely removing any sense of productivity from life for a day. And I mean, if on my day of silence, I don't go walking if it's about getting my 10,000 steps. I only walk if it's about prayer. And I'm like, okay, I have 2 verses I'm going to focus on all day. If I get done with that, I'm not going to go knock off Lamentations because I've been meaning to read that. So anything with a productivity mindset, I eliminate from that day. And I have found that I will flip back through my day of silence journals, and I will find prayers that I prayed 2 years ago have all of a sudden come to, I've just found it incredibly rich. And often I will hear a phrase or an edict or something I feel like God is saying me that will buoy me for a long time. And, that kind of relates to the pilgrimage I took, which I think what my pilgrimage helped me realize is this is
the El Camino de Santiago.
The walking pilgrimage. This is not an episodic faith. With the Holy Spirit deposited within us, we have constancy of devotion available to us. And so right now I'm really trying to move towards constancy of devotion. Like Lauren said, that word traveled with her when she was frustrated about logging in at the wrong time. I'm working on every single moment of every single day, down to what I put my hands on at the grocery store, as one of my mentors taught me. Is this what I need in my grocery basket? So I'm really trying to move towards a practice of constancy, but it's hard. I'm powerless to do that on my own.
Y'all are inspirations. You encourage me. Can you give us an example of someone that you've worked with or seen through your years of work who've really gotten it and done a healthy, laudable faith and work integration in their lives?
I mean, I think Lauren and I probably have a list of 100. And in fact, there's like 5 videos of kind of exemplars on the Global Faith and Work Pastor's Toolkit webpage.
Mm-hmm.
So many come to mind, but you know, I really there was an example. The thing is, if you put one example, it's going to be particular about that industry, but there's examples in every industry. But there's this one example in the criminal justice industry where someone that went through Gotham here in Nashville and his colleague really noticed that in the criminal justice system, a lot of people end up in their first bookings at the jail due to some kind of mental health break. Maybe it's addiction, maybe it's schizophrenia, maybe it's trauma from domestic violence or something, but they don't have a true serial criminal behavior type or behavior pattern. And they found that once they're booked and end up in the jail, they end up falling into a behavioral pattern of criminal acts because okay, now they missed their parole by accident, and really they needed some mental health support. And so really based on partially on their faith, they have done a redirect within the Nashville jail system where there are certain profiles of people who, when they get arrested and get booked into the jail, actually end up not fully getting put into the jail, but get diverted into a behavioral care unit where they spend 10 to 20 days. I'm not exactly sure the number of days being paid for by the government. And by the way, it is cheaper than keeping them in jail. Is cheaper than what it would have cost per day to have them in jail, to receive some behavioral support, to try to work on addictive patterns, try to get their medications right if needed, and have a whole lot of group therapy, and then give them supports to go out into the world. And, this isn't for everyone. This is for a certain type of person who ends up at the jail system that perhaps doesn't have a criminal behavior pattern.
And it's not that justice is not executed.
Correct.
It's just done in a way that's more helpful and more reparative.
Yeah, it is a restorative way for someone who is not on a criminal intent path.
That's fantastic. Lauren, any examples in your world?
So many. I mean, one of the ones that I love the most is there was a woman named Regina Green, and she was working in a large New York City financial institution, and she was there for over a decade. And after being there for a long period of time, she was able to start an initiative where they took a lot of capital from the institution and gave it to small business owners of underrepresented populations, women entrepreneurs, Black and Brown entrepreneurs, people who didn't typically have access to levels of capital from a place like that. And what I always loved about her story was that she talked about how it took her a decade there to sort of earn the relational capital, to build this initiative. And I really liked that because to me, that's like a long line of obedience in the same direction, right? A lot of people, I think now, especially, younger people, they see all the brokenness in the system and they want to go in and say, let's fix it immediately. And you do have to earn the relationships in order to do that a lot of times, I think. So I always loved her story.
So I'd love to just add one more thing, because Lauren and I did give examples that are really noteworthy and kind of grandiose. It can at times start to feel like, oh, I can't do that from where I sit, but everybody can do a little bit from where they sit, especially when in prayer and joining what God might already be doing right around you. And so everyone has someone they're working with that is experiencing some brokenness. Everyone can see a file system that's not working well. And so I think prayer around where is brokenness around me that I can look towards, and where is creational good that I can help move towards in any job, is a way to be one of these restorative presences, even in the tiny things, like making a staff meeting work in a more structured, healthy way. That's a big win for a lot of teams. It doesn't have to be, reshape your industry.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and that's to the point of your book, for everyday impact. Faith and Work, Galvanizing Your Church for Everyday Impact. Friends, let me encourage you to check this out. Go buy one for your pastor. Go buy one for your elders and leaders, and even to help educate yourself, looking across these different sections in the table of contents. It's fantastic. You start out with defining why does work matter, and then moving into defining destinations, becoming a Faith and Work integrated leader, a journey map, and then building leadership, understanding needs, implementing steps 1, 2, 3, 4. So great job. Great job. You should be very proud. And we hope and pray sales are big and the reach is far. Missy and Lauren, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having us. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, it's great to be together. And I'll see you next week at Citygate. Missy, thank you.
Thank you, Case. We love doing this with you. Thank you.
Friends, if you want to learn more, you can go to globalfaithandwork.com to learn more about Lauren's work. And then on that page, you will find another page that's particular to the book. So globalfaithandwork.com/galvanize your church. Galvanize your church. And to learn more about Missy and her work, go to 9017. That's the number 90 and the word 17, 9017.com. Well, friends, thank you so much for joining us. Please like and share. It really helps us to get the word out. Leave a review wherever you get your podcasts. You can go to our website, wecolabor.com, for all sorts of content, and drop us your email, and I'll send you in the postal mail a 31-day Faith and Work prompt journal. You can find us across the social media platforms. Don't forget our other podcast, Formed for Faithfulness, a weekly 10-minute devotional that drops every Monday for the working Christian that follows the liturgical calendar. I want to thank our sponsor for today, the V3 Family Foundation. I'm Case Thorpe, and God's blessings on you.